She stood frozen at her front door at 1 a.m., her neighbor's trembling voice cutting through the night. "Your husband is at my house, and I don't know how to say this." Before the sentence finished, she was already running, barefoot across wet grass, her heart shattering with every step toward the truth that would change everything. Welcome back, my wonderful family and friends. I am Mr. Zaha. Thanks for tuning in today. A kind words from a man who has seen it all. Marriage are not mostly bed of roses. Sometime you need more of. More of what? Can't say. Continue watching, and you will surely know what to do in situations like this. Kindly hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you another exciting story you definitely don't want to miss. So let's get started. The house was too quiet. Victoria Hayes had grown accustomed to the silence, the kind that settled into the corners of a 12,000 square foot mansion like dust, accumulating in places you stopped noticing. She sat curled on the oversized sectional in the living room, a glass of wine balanced on her knee, watching the clock on the wall tick past midnight. 1 a.m. Marcus still wasn't home. She told herself it didn't matter. Her husband was a billionaire. After all, CEO of Hayes Industries, a tech empire that demanded everything from him. Late nights were normal. Early mornings were expected. Sometimes he slept at the office. Sometimes he flew to meetings without telling her until he landed. This was the life she'd signed up for. Victoria took another sip of wine, the ruby liquid bitter on her tongue. The living room stretched around her, all marble floors and vaulted ceilings, decorated by an interior designer whose name she could never remember. Everything was beautiful. Everything was perfect. Everything felt like a museum where she was both the curator and the lone visitor. Her phone sat dark on the coffee table. No messages. No calls. She wondered if Marcus even remembered she existed tonight. "Stop it," she told herself. "You're being dramatic." But the thought persisted, gnawing at her the way it had been for months now. When had they last had a real conversation? When had he last looked at her? Really looked at her? The way he used to when they first met 7 years ago? Back then, he'd been hungry and ambitious, building his company from nothing. She'd been a graduate student, working part-time at the coffee shop where he bought his morning espresso. He'd noticed her, pursued her, made her feel like the center of his universe. Now she felt like expensive furniture he'd purchased and forgotten about. Victoria drained her glass and stood, padding across the cold floor toward the kitchen. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see their neighborhood, Ridgemont Estates, where every house cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Manicured lawns, 3-car garages, privacy hedges tall enough to keep out both paparazzi and genuine human connection. She'd hated it here at first. Too isolated. Too sterile. But Marcus had insisted. "We need security," he'd said. "We need space." What they'd gotten was loneliness dressed up as luxury. As Victoria rinsed her wine glass, movement caught her eye through the window above the sink. The house next door, the Caldwell's place, had lights on. Strange, for this hour. She watched as a shadow moved past their kitchen window. Melissa Caldwell. Victoria felt the familiar twist of discomfort in her stomach. Melissa had moved in 6 months ago with her husband, Brian, a commercial airline pilot who was gone for days at a time. Melissa was friendly. Too friendly. The kind of woman who showed up with homemade cookies, who invited herself over for coffee, who asked pointed questions about Marcus with an interest that felt less neighborly and more predatory. "You're so lucky," Melissa had said once, standing in Victoria's kitchen, her eyes roaming over the Italian marble countertops. "Having a husband who can give you all this. Brian and I are comfortable, but nothing like this. You must feel so secure." Victoria had smiled politely, but the comment had lodged under her skin like a splinter. Melissa was beautiful in that calculated way. Honey blonde hair always perfectly styled, yoga pants that cost more than they should, a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She was 32, 3 years younger than Victoria, and wore her youth like armor. Victoria had caught Marcus talking to Melissa twice. Once at the mailboxes. Once when Melissa had accidentally knocked on their door looking for her cat. "She's harmless," Marcus had said when Victoria mentioned it. "Just friendly." But his eyes had shifted away when he said it. Victoria shook her head, forcing the thoughts away. She was being paranoid, insecure, all those things she'd promised herself she wouldn't become. She turned off the kitchen light and headed upstairs, exhaustion settling into her bones. Maybe she'd just go to bed. Marcus would come home eventually. Or he wouldn't. Either way, she was tired of waiting. The bedroom felt cavernous without him. Victoria changed into her pajamas, silk ones that Marcus had bought her last Christmas, still with the tags on until she'd worn them out of guilt, and slid under the covers. The sheets were cold. Everything was always cold. She closed her eyes, willing sleep to come. It didn't. Instead, she lay there in the dark, listening to the house settle, feeling the weight of all the things unsaid between her and her husband. When had they become strangers? When had their marriage become a performance they both stopped rehearsing for? Maybe tomorrow, she thought. Maybe tomorrow we'll talk. Really talk. But even as she thought it, she didn't believe it. The knock came at exactly 1:47 a.m. Victoria jolted awake, her heart hammering. For a moment, she thought she'd dreamed it. Then it came again, urgent, insistent, rattling through the silence like gunfire. She threw off the covers and stumbled downstairs, her mind racing. Marcus had his key. Who would be knocking at this hour? Through the frosted glass of the front door, she could see a figure. Female. Blonde. Melissa. Victoria's stomach dropped. She opened the door, and there stood her neighbor, barefoot, wearing a silk robe that gaped open at the chest. Her perfectly styled hair was mussed. Her eyes were wide, panicked. Victoria, Melissa breathed. I'm so sorry to wake you. I didn't know what else to do. Your husband, Marcus, he's at my house. The world tilted. What? He's at my house, Melissa repeated, her voice trembling. I don't know how to say this. I think you need to come over. Now. Victoria's mouth went dry. Her mind couldn't process the words. Marcus. At Melissa's house. At nearly 2 in the morning. I don't understand, she whispered. Please. Melissa said, reaching for Victoria's hand. Her fingers were ice cold. Just come with me. You need to see. But Victoria was already moving. She didn't grab a coat. Didn't put on shoes. She just ran. Out the door, across the driveway, her bare feet hitting the cold pavement, then the wet grass of Melissa's lawn. Behind her, she heard Melissa calling her name, but the sound was distant, underwater. All Victoria could hear was her own heart breaking, each beat a hammer strike against her ribs. Not Marcus. Please, not Marcus. But as she reached Melissa's front door, already standing open, spilling light into the dark night, she knew. She knew that whatever she found inside would change everything. And there was no going back. What do you think Victoria is about to discover? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you're expecting to happen next. Victoria burst through Melissa's front door, her breath ragged, her vision tunneling. The house was a mirror of her own. Same floor plan, same builder. But where Victoria's home felt cold and empty, Melissa's was warm. Lived in. Candles flickered on the console table. Soft jazz played from somewhere deeper in the house. The air smelled of vanilla and something else. Something that made Victoria's skin crawl. Perfume. Expensive perfume. Where is he? Victoria's voice came out strangled. Melissa stood behind her in the doorway, wringing her hands. Upstairs. In the guest room. I swear, Victoria, I didn't. But Victoria was already moving, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Her bare feet pounded against the hardwood. The guest room. Why would Marcus be in Melissa's guest room at 2 in the morning? The hallway stretched before her, doors closed on either side. One stood ajar at the end, light spilling out. Victoria's hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. Please, she prayed to a God she wasn't sure she believed in anymore. Please let this be a mistake. She pushed the door open. The scene before her froze in perfect, horrible clarity. Marcus stood beside the bed, his shirt unbuttoned, his face pale as death. His eyes met hers, wide, shocked, guilty. And on the bed, sheets tangled around her legs, sat Melissa's cat. No. Victoria's brain stuttered, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Not the cat. Behind the cat. On the nightstand. Women's jewelry. A phone lit up with messages. And Marcus's jacket, draped over the chair. Victoria. Marcus started, stepping toward her. Don't. The word ripped from her throat. Behind her, she heard footsteps thundering up the stairs. Heavy. Male. What the hell is going on in my house? Victoria spun. Brian Caldwell stood in the hallway, still in his pilot's uniform, his face dark with rage. He wasn't supposed to be home. He was supposed to be flying to Denver. Time seemed to stop. Brian's eyes moved from Victoria to Marcus to the open door of the guest room. His jaw clenched. You've got to be kidding me. Brian, Melissa appeared at the top of the stairs, her face crumpling. It's not what it looks like. I swear to God, it's not. Not what it looks like. Brian's voice was deadly quiet. My wife in a robe at 2 a.m., and this man, he jabbed a finger at Marcus. In our guest room with his shirt open? What exactly am I supposed to think it looks like? Victoria felt her knees go weak. She gripped the door frame to stay upright. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. Marcus held up his hands. Let me explain. Please. Just let me explain. Explain? Victoria heard herself say. The word felt like glass in her mouth. Explain why you're here? Why your shirt is off? Why she gestured at Melissa, came to my door looking like that. I came to get you, Melissa said desperately. I wanted you to know. I wanted you to see. See what? Brian roared. See that my wife is sleeping with the neighbor? That's what you wanted her to see. No. Melissa's voice broke. That's not. We're not. Then what the hell is he doing here? Brian moved toward Marcus, his fists clenched. Marcus didn't back down. Despite everything, despite the impossible situation, he stood his ground. I came here to help her. That's all. I came to help. Help her with what? Victoria's voice shook. Help her what, Marcus? What could possibly require you to be here at 2 in the morning with your shirt unbuttoned in her guest room? The words hung in the air like poison. Marcus looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his expression cracked. Pain. Raw, genuine pain. Vic, I know how this looks. I know. But you have to trust me. Please. Just trust me. Trust you. The laugh that escaped her was bitter. You're asking me to trust you? When I haven't seen you in 3 days. When you don't answer your phone. When you come home. If you come home at all. Smelling like someone else's perfume. She watched his face go white. What? You think I haven't noticed? Tears burned in Victoria's eyes. You think I'm blind? For months, Marcus. Months of you pulling away. Months of excuses. Late nights. Business trips. And now this. She gestured wildly at the room. Now I find you here. With her. And you want me to trust you? Nothing happened. Marcus said, his voice strained. Victoria, I swear to you, nothing happened. Then why are you here? Brian demanded. Give me one good reason why you're in my house, alone with my wife, in the middle of the night. Melissa sobbed. Please. Both of you. Just listen. I'm done listening, Brian said. He pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police. I want him out of my house. No. Melissa lunged for the phone, but Brian jerked it away. Don't touch me, he snarled. The venom in his voice made everyone freeze. Victoria watched it all through a haze of shock. This was her life. This was what her marriage had become. Standing in a neighbor's hallway at 2 in the morning, watching her husband, her distant, workaholic, billionaire husband, try to explain the inexplicable. She felt something break inside her. Something that had been cracking for months, maybe years. The final thread of hope that had kept her believing in them. I want to know the truth, Victoria said quietly. Her voice cut through the chaos like a knife. Right now? No more excuses. No more secrets. The truth, Marcus. Or I walk out that door and you never see me again. The ultimatum hung heavy in the air. Marcus stared at her, his chest heaving. She could see the war in his eyes, between protecting whatever secret he was keeping and losing her forever. Tell her, Melissa whispered. For God's sake, Marcus, just tell her. Brian's head snapped toward his wife. Tell her what? What are you two hiding? Melissa's face crumpled. Tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, Brian. I'm so sorry. I should have told you weeks ago. Told me what? Brian's voice rose. What the hell is going on? Victoria felt her heart hammering so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. She looked at Marcus, at the man she'd loved, married, built a life with, and realized she didn't know him at all. Marcus, she said, her voice breaking. Please. He closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they were filled with something Victoria had never seen before. Fear. I've been coming here, he said slowly, for the past 6 weeks. 3 nights a week, sometimes 4. Always late. Always when Brian was flying. The words landed like physical blows. Brian made a sound like a wounded animal. You son of a. But not for the reason you think. Marcus continued quickly. He looked at Melissa. Tell them. Show them. They deserve to know. Melissa nodded, wiping her eyes. With shaking hands, she walked to the dresser and opened the top drawer. She pulled out a manila folder, thick with papers. I have cancer, she said quietly. The words sucked all the air from the room. Victoria felt the floor shift beneath her feet. What? Stage 3 ovarian cancer. Melissa continued, her voice hollow. I was diagnosed 4 months ago. I didn't tell Brian because her voice broke, because I didn't want him to quit flying. We need the money. The insurance. I couldn't let him know. Not yet. Not until I knew if the treatment would work. Brian stood frozen, his face ashen. Melissa, I was scared, Melissa whispered. I was so scared. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anyone to talk to. Anyone who could understand what it's like to have everything and still feel like you're drowning. She looked at Victoria, her eyes pleading. I ran into Marcus at the hospital. He was there visiting a colleague. I was coming out of my oncology appointment. I broke down in the parking lot. He helped me. He listened. And she turned to Marcus. He offered to help me research treatment options. His company has medical AI research. He thought he could find something. Some trial. Some option I hadn't considered. The folder trembled in her hands. He's been coming over to go through medical journals with me. To help me understand the statistics. To help me make decisions about my treatment. That's all. I swear that's all. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria looked at Marcus, her mind reeling. Why didn't you tell me? Because she asked me not to, Marcus said softly. She wasn't ready for Brian to know. And I promised her I'd keep her secret until she was. But you could have told me, Victoria said, tears streaming down her face now. I'm your wife. You could have. I know, Marcus said. God, Vic, I know. And I wanted to. Every single day, I wanted to tell you. But it wasn't my secret to share. And I was trying to help someone who was desperate. Someone who had no one else. He took a step toward her. I see now how it looked. How it must have felt for you. All those late nights. All that distance. I was so focused on helping Melissa that I didn't see what I was doing to us. Victoria couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Everything she'd believed, every assumption she'd made, was crumbling. Brian hadn't moved. He stared at his wife like he'd never seen her before. You have cancer? Melissa nodded, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. You didn't know how to. Brian's voice broke. He crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled Melissa into his arms. You're my wife. You're supposed to tell me. You're supposed to let me be there for you. They collapsed together, both of them crying, holding each other like the world was ending. Because for them, maybe it was. Victoria stood in the doorway, watching them, feeling like she was witnessing something too private, too raw. She turned to Marcus. He looked exhausted, defeated, guilty. Why didn't you tell me tonight? She whispered. When she knocked on the door, why didn't you just tell me the truth? Because she was panicking, Marcus said. Brian wasn't supposed to be home. His flight got canceled. She called me in a panic, asking me to come get my jacket before he saw it. I rushed over, and before I could leave, he walked in. She froze. She couldn't tell him. Not like this. So she came to get you, thinking maybe if you were here, she'd have to explain. That it would force her to finally tell him. Victoria felt her knees give out. Marcus caught her, his arms strong around her waist. I'm so sorry, he breathed into her hair. Vic, I'm so sorry. For all of it. For making you think the worst. For making you doubt us. I was just trying to help, and I ended up hurting the only person I never wanted to hurt. Victoria pulled back, looking up at him. We've been broken for months, Marcus. This isn't just about tonight. I know, he said. I know. And we need to fix it. We need to really fix it. But right now, I need you to know, I would never cheat on you. Never. You're the only woman I've ever loved. The only one I'll ever love. The words should have been enough. But Victoria realized, standing there in that stranger's guest room, that love wasn't enough. Not anymore. They needed more than love. They needed truth, trust, time. And she didn't know if they had any of those things left. The truth is finally out. But can Victoria and Marcus rebuild what's been broken? What would you do in Victoria's position? Let us know in the comments. The 4 of them stood in the guest room like survivors of a shipwreck, clinging to wreckage they couldn't quite identify as salvation or doom. Brian held Melissa against his chest, his pilot's uniform rumpled, his eyes red. He whispered something into her hair, too soft for Victoria to hear, and Melissa's shoulders shook with fresh sobs. Victoria stepped back from Marcus's embrace. She needed air, space, distance from the intensity of the moment. I need to go home, she said. Marcus's hand fell away. Vic, not forever, she clarified, though the words felt uncertain even as she spoke them. Just for tonight. I need to think. I need to. She couldn't finish the sentence. Need to what? Process? Understand? Decide if her marriage was salvageable? Let me walk you back, Marcus said. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. She softened her voice. Please, just give me tonight. She saw the pain flash across his face, but he nodded. Okay, whatever you need. Victoria turned to leave, then paused. She looked at Melissa, still wrapped in Brian's arms. I'm sorry for what you're going through. I truly am. Melissa lifted her tear-stained face. I never meant to hurt you, or your marriage. I was just so scared, and Marcus was the first person who didn't look at me like I was already dead. The rawness of the confession made Victoria's chest tighten. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and left the room. The walk back to her house took less than a minute, but it felt like crossing a continent. Her bare feet were numb on the cold ground. The pre-dawn air bit at her skin through her thin pajamas. She didn't care. Inside her house, Victoria locked the door and leaned against it, her legs finally giving out. She slid to the floor, hugging her knees to her chest. The truth should have been a relief. Marcus wasn't cheating. He was helping someone, being compassionate, being the man she'd fallen in love with all those years ago. So why did she feel more broken than before? Because the truth revealed something worse than infidelity. It revealed how little trust remained between them, how quickly she'd believed the worst, how easily their marriage had cracked under the smallest pressure. And it revealed that Marcus had spent 6 weeks, intimately involved in another woman's crisis, while Victoria had been drowning in loneliness in their own home. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. I love you. I'm coming home in an hour. Please don't leave. The assumption that she might leave, that their marriage was that fragile, made her throat tight. She didn't respond. Instead, she climbed the stairs to their bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. The clock on the nightstand read 3:17 a.m. In a few hours, the sun would rise. Life would continue. But Victoria couldn't imagine how. Marcus came home at 4:30 a.m. Victoria heard his key in the lock, his footsteps in the foyer. He climbed the stairs slowly, like a man approaching his own execution. When he appeared in the bedroom doorway, he looked wrecked. His shirt was still unbuttoned. His hair was disheveled. But it was his eyes that stopped her, hollow with fear and exhaustion. Can I come in? He asked. Victoria nodded. Marcus sat on the opposite edge of the bed, leaving 3 feet of space between them. It might as well have been 3 miles. Brian's taking Melissa to the emergency room, he said quietly. She's been having pain for days. She was trying to manage it herself, but tonight it got worse. That's why she was panicking when Brian came home early. She could barely stand. Victoria closed her eyes. Is she going to be okay? I don't know. The survival rate for stage 3 ovarian cancer is around 40%. But she's young. She's strong. She has a chance. The clinical way he delivered the statistics made Victoria's stomach turn. How long have you known those numbers? Since the first night, she told me. I researched everything. Every trial, every treatment option, every percentage point of hope I could find. You put that much effort into saving her. Marcus turned to face her. I put that much effort into helping someone who was terrified and alone. Yes. While I was here, terrified and alone, wondering where my husband was. The words hung between them like a blade. Marcus's face crumpled. You're right. God, Vic, you're right. I was so focused on Melissa's crisis that I didn't see I was creating one with you. Why her? Victoria heard the crack in her own voice. Why did you care so much about saving her? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because I couldn't save Emma. Victoria felt her heart stop. What? My sister. Emma. Marcus's hands trembled in his lap. She died when I was 19. Leukemia. I was supposed to be her bone marrow donor. I was a perfect match. But I got pneumonia 2 days before the scheduled transplant. By the time I recovered, it was too late. She died 3 weeks later. Victoria's breath caught. Marcus, I didn't know you had a sister. I don't talk about her. I can't. It's been 16 years, and I still can't. Tears streamed down his face now. When I saw Melissa in that parking lot, breaking down about her diagnosis, all I could see was Emma. Scared. Sick. Needing someone to fight for her. And this time, I could do something. This time, I wasn't helpless. The confession shattered something in Victoria's chest. She'd been married to this man for 7 years, and she'd never known he carried this weight. This guilt. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. About Emma. About any of it. Because I'm ashamed. Marcus's voice broke. Because I failed her. Because every time I think about it, I can't breathe. And I thought if I just kept moving forward, kept building, kept succeeding, maybe it would matter less. Maybe I could outrun it. But you can't outrun grief, Marcus. It follows you. And it infected our marriage. He nodded, wiping his eyes. I see that now. I see how I've shut you out. How I've buried myself in work and causes and anything that keeps me from feeling too much. Because if I feel too much, I'll remember Emma. I'll remember that I failed when it mattered most. Victoria moved closer, closing the gap between them. She took his hand. You didn't fail her. You got sick. That's not failure. That's just terrible, unfair luck. I was supposed to save her. You were 19 years old and sick yourself. You're not God, Marcus. You can't control everything. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and she saw the boy he'd been, the one who'd lost his sister and blamed himself for 16 years. The one who'd built an empire trying to prove he was worthy of the life she'd lost. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. For making you feel invisible. For choosing someone else's pain over yours. For not trusting you with my own. Victoria felt tears sliding down her cheeks. I'm sorry too. For assuming the worst. For not fighting for us. For letting us become strangers. They sat in silence, holding hands, feeling the weight of everything unsaid over the years settling between them. Finally, Victoria spoke. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I, Marcus admitted. But I want to try, if you'll let me. It's not just about tonight, Marcus. It's about the last 2 years. The distance. The loneliness. The feeling that I'm just set dressing in your life. I know. And you deserve better. You deserve everything. I don't want everything, Victoria said. I just want you. The real you. Not the CEO or the billionaire or the man trying to save everyone else. Just you. Marcus squeezed her hand. What if the real me is broken? Then we'll be broken together. They didn't sleep. Instead, they talked. For the first time in months, maybe years, they actually talked. Marcus told her about Emma. About growing up with a sister who was sick more than she was well. About the guilt that had shaped every decision he'd made since losing her. Victoria told him about the loneliness. About feeling like a ghost in her own marriage. About the nights she'd cried herself to sleep wondering if he even noticed she was gone. As dawn broke through their bedroom windows, painting everything in shades of gold and pink, Victoria realized something. They had a choice. They could let this night destroy them. Let the secrets and assumptions and years of distance finally sever whatever threads still connected them. Or they could use it as a foundation. A painful, honest starting point for rebuilding something real. I want to go to therapy, Victoria said as the sun crested the horizon. Both of us. Together. Marcus nodded. I'll find someone today. The best in the city. Not the best. Just someone good. Someone who won't let us hide. Okay. And I want you to take time off work. Real time. Not a weekend. A month. Marcus hesitated. Vic, I can't just. Yes, you can. You're the CEO. You can do whatever you want. And what I want, what I need, is for you to choose us. For once. Choose us over the company. She watched him wrestle with it. Watched the instinct to refuse, to explain why it was impossible to protect his empire. Then she watched him make a different choice. Okay, he said. 1 month. Starting today. Victoria felt something shift in her chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the possibility of hope. Thank you, she whispered. They sat together as the sun rose. 2 broken people holding on to each other in the wreckage, trying to figure out how to build something new from the pieces. 3 days later, Victoria stood on Melissa's porch, holding a casserole dish. She'd debated coming. Debated whether showing up was an act of kindness or masochism. But in the end, she couldn't stay away. Brian answered the door. He looked exhausted but calmer than he had that horrible night. Victoria. Hi. Hi. I brought food. I wasn't sure what else to do. A small smile touched his lips. Food is good. Come in. The house looked different in daylight. Less threatening. Just a home where 2 people were trying to survive a crisis. Melissa sat on the couch, wrapped in blankets, her face pale. She looked up when Victoria entered, surprise flickering across her features. You came. I came, Victoria confirmed. She set the casserole on the coffee table. How are you feeling? Like I've been hit by a truck. But I'm here. That's something. Brian sat beside his wife, taking her hand. The doctors say she needs surgery. Next week. They're optimistic, but it's going to be a long road. I'm so sorry, Victoria said, and she meant it. Whatever complicated feelings she had about Melissa, no one deserved this. Melissa's eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry too. For everything. For involving Marcus. For not being honest with Brian. For messing up your life. You didn't mess up my life, Victoria said. You exposed problems that were already there. Problems Marcus and I need to face. Are you? Melissa hesitated. Are you two okay? Victoria considered the question. Were they okay? Not yet. Maybe not for a long time. But they were trying. We're talking, she said. Really talking. For the first time in a long time. So maybe we will be. Melissa nodded. He loves you, you know. Marcus. He talked about you all the time when we were researching treatments. How smart you are. How patient. How he didn't deserve you. Victoria's throat tightened. He told me about his sister. Emma, Melissa said softly. Yeah, that's why he helped me. I reminded him of her. I know. They sat in silence for a moment. Three people connected by crisis and secrets and the messy reality of human relationships. Finally, Victoria stood. I should go. But if you need anything, rides to appointments, meals, whatever, let me know. We're neighbors. We should act like it. Melissa's face crumpled with gratitude. Thank you. Really. Thank you. As Victoria walked home, she felt lighter. Not fixed, not even close, but lighter. Like maybe, just maybe, she could breathe again. Marcus was waiting when she got home. He'd made coffee, terrible coffee, because he'd never learned how to work their complicated espresso machine, and set out pastries from the bakery downtown. How'd it go, he asked. Hard. Sad. But okay, I think. He handed her a cup. I found a therapist. Dr. Sarah Chun. She has an opening tomorrow at 3. I told her we'd take it. Victoria wrapped her hands around the warm mug. Tomorrow. Okay. And I talked to my board. Told them I'm taking a month off. They think I'm having a breakdown. Are you? Marcus smiled. A real smile. The first she'd seen in months. Maybe. But if I am, at least I'm having it with you. Victoria kissed him then. Not a passionate kiss. Not a kiss that promised everything was fixed. Just a kiss that said, I'm still here. I'm still trying. I still choose you. And for now, that was enough. The therapist's office was nothing like Victoria expected. She'd imagined something cold and clinical, leather couches, abstract art, the sterile smell of professionalism. Instead, Dr. Sarah Chen's space felt like someone's living room. Soft chairs, plants everywhere, a window overlooking a garden where birds flitted between feeders. Come in, Dr. Chen said, gesturing to the chairs. She was younger than Victoria expected, maybe 40, with kind eyes and an easy smile. Make yourselves comfortable. Victoria and Marcus sat, leaving careful space between them. A habit, Victoria realized. Even now, they were still maintaining distance. Dr. Chen noticed. She noticed everything. So, she began, settling into her own chair with a notepad. Tell me why you're here. Marcus looked at Victoria. Victoria looked at her hands. Our marriage is falling apart, Victoria said finally. Or maybe it already fell apart, and we're just now noticing the pieces. That's honest, Dr. Chen said. Marcus, do you agree with that assessment? Marcus nodded slowly. Yeah, I do. I've been so focused on everything else that I let us crumble. I took her for granted. I stopped seeing her. And Victoria, when did you stop being seen? The question landed like a punch. Victoria felt tears spring to her eyes. I don't know. Gradually. It's been like watching a sunset. You don't notice the light fading until suddenly it's dark. Tell me about 3 days ago, Dr. Chen said. Marcus mentioned on the phone that there was an incident that brought you here. So they told her. Everything. The knock at the door. The panic. The discovery. The truth about Melissa and the cancer and Emma. The sister Marcus had never mentioned in 7 years of marriage. Dr. Chen listened without interrupting, her pen moving occasionally across her notepad. When they finished, she set down her pen and looked at them both. Victoria, when you found Marcus at Melissa's house, what did you feel? Betrayed. Humiliated. Angry. But not surprised? The observation hit Victoria like cold water. What? You said you'd noticed him pulling away for months. The late nights. The distance. When Melissa knocked on your door, you ran over there already believing the worst. That suggests you'd been expecting betrayal for a while. Victoria's mouth went dry. I guess I had been. Why? Because, Victoria's voice cracked. Because I'm not enough. I'm not successful or brilliant or important. I'm just me. And Marcus is extraordinary. He could have anyone. Why would he choose me? Across the space between them, Marcus made a wounded sound. Vic, no. Dr. Chun held up a hand. Marcus, let her finish. Victoria wiped her eyes. I've felt invisible for so long. Like I'm just part of the furniture in his life. The CEO's wife. The woman who shows up to charity galas and smiles for photos. But not a real person. Not someone he actually sees or needs or wants. And when you saw him with Melissa, it confirmed everything I'd been afraid of. That he'd found someone more interesting. Someone worth his time. The silence that followed was crushing. Finally, Dr. Chun turned to Marcus. What do you want to say to that? Marcus's face was stricken. That she's wrong. That she's everything. That I'm the one who's not enough. Explain that. I built an empire because I was trying to prove I was worth something. Worth the life my sister didn't get to have. Worth the air I breathe. And somewhere along the way, I forgot that the only person whose opinion actually mattered was sitting at home, waiting for me to remember she existed. His voice broke. I didn't choose Melissa over Victoria. I chose guilt and grief and running from my own pain over the woman I love. And I don't know how to forgive myself for that. Dr. Chin leaned forward. Here's what I'm hearing. Victoria, you believe you're not enough, so you've made yourself small and invisible, waiting for Marcus to prove your worst fears right. Marcus, you believe you're not enough, so you've made yourself indispensable to everyone except the person who actually needs you. You're both drowning, but you're drowning separately. In the same house. In the same marriage. Alone. The truth of it hung in the air like smoke. So what do we do? Victoria whispered. You make a choice, Dr. Chin said simply. Right now? In this moment. Do you want to save this marriage? Yes, Marcus said immediately. Dr. Chin looked at Victoria. Victoria? Victoria stared at her hands. Did she want to save it? Or was she just afraid of starting over? Afraid of being alone? Afraid of admitting that 7 years had been wasted? I don't know, she said finally. The honesty felt like ripping off a bandage. I want to save it. But I don't know if I have anything left to give. Marcus's sharp intake of breath was audible. That's honest, Dr. Chin said. And that's okay. Marcus, how does it feel to hear that? Terrifying, Marcus admitted. Like I'm watching everything I care about slip through my fingers. Good. You should be terrified. Because Victoria is telling you that she's 1 foot out the door, and if you want her to stay, you're going to have to give her a reason. Not money. Not promises. Real, tangible change. Dr. Chun turned back to Victoria. And Victoria, you need to decide if you're willing to do the hard work of rebuilding trust. Because that's what this is going to take. Not just Marcus changing. Both of you changing. Both of you being vulnerable and honest and willing to hurt and heal together. Victoria felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. What if we try and it doesn't work? Then at least you'll know you tried. At least you won't spend the rest of your life wondering what if. Dr. Chin paused. But I'll be honest with you both. Right now, I don't see a marriage. I see 2 lonely people living parallel lives. If you want to save this, you need to collide. You need to crash into each other and make it messy and real. Marcus reached across the space between them. His hand hovered in the air, an offering. I want to collide. If you'll let me. Victoria stared at his hand. At the wedding ring he still wore. At the man who'd been a stranger for so long. And she made a choice. She took his hand. Okay, she said. Let's collide. The next 2 weeks were the hardest of Victoria's life. Dr. Chun gave them assignments. Homework, she called it. Exercises designed to force them out of their comfortable distance and into uncomfortable intimacy. The first assignment. Share one thing you've never told your spouse. Every day, Marcus went first that night, sitting across from Victoria at their dining room table. I almost left Hayes Industries 3 years ago. I had the resignation letter written. I was going to sell everything and travel the world with you. But then we got the offer from the Japanese investors, and I thought, just one more deal. One more success. Then I'll do it. I never did. Victoria felt her chest tighten. I didn't know you wanted to leave. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to live. With you. But I was too afraid to admit that the company had become a prison instead of a purpose. The next night, Victoria shared. I applied to graduate school last year. A PhD program in art history. I got in. Full scholarship. But I didn't tell you because I was afraid you'd think it was stupid. That I was wasting time on something that didn't matter. Marcus stared at her. You got in? Vic, That's incredible. Why didn't you go? Because you never asked about it. You never asked what I wanted. So I decided I didn't want anything. The confession hung between them, heavy with regret. They kept going. Every night, a new truth. Some small, some devastating. Marcus, I check my phone during dinner because I'm afraid if I look at you, you'll see how much I hate myself. Victoria, I've imagined leaving you. I've looked at apartments. I've practiced what I'd say. Marcus, I dream about Emma every night. She's always dying, and I can never save her. Victoria, I've forgotten what it feels like to be touched with love instead of obligation. Each truth was a knife, but also a key, unlocking doors they'd kept closed for years. The second assignment came during their fourth session with Dr. Chen. Spend one full day together. No phones. No distractions. Just the two of them. Where do you want to go? Marcus asked the night before. Victoria thought about it. Where had they been happy? When had they last been themselves? The beach, she said. The one where you proposed. Marcus's eyes widened. Crescent Cove. Yeah. Can we go there? Of course. I'll drive. They left before dawn, Marcus behind the wheel of his Tesla, Victoria watching the city lights fade into darkness. They didn't talk much. The silence felt different now, not empty, but full of possibility. Crescent Cove was exactly as Victoria remembered, a hidden stretch of beach 2 hours north, where rocky cliffs gave way to smooth sand and tidal pools teeming with life. They'd come here on their second date, and Marcus had proposed here 3 years later, getting down on one knee in the surf, while Victoria laughed and cried and said yes. I haven't been back since the wedding, Marcus said as they walked down to the water. Neither have I. They took off their shoes and walked along the shoreline, waves lapping at their feet. The early morning sun painted everything gold. Tell me something, Victoria said. When did you realize you were losing me? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. The night of the Harrison Gala. 6 months ago. You wore that green dress, the one I bought you for your birthday. And you looked so beautiful it hurt to look at you. But when I told you that, you just smiled and said thank you, and your eyes were empty. Like you didn't believe me. Like you'd stopped believing anything I said. Victoria remembered that night. Remembered Marcus's compliment and thinking, he's just saying what he's supposed to say. I'd stopped believing you, she admitted. I'd stopped believing in us. When did you realize you'd stopped? Victoria bent down, picking up a piece of sea glass worn smooth by waves. I don't think there was one moment. It was erosion, little by little, wave by wave, until suddenly there was nothing left. They walked further, past the tidal pools, to the rocky outcrop where Marcus had proposed. I was so sure that day, Marcus said, looking out at the horizon. So sure that we'd be different. That we wouldn't become one of those couples who forgot why they fell in love. That we'd always choose each other. We were naive. Maybe. Or maybe we just didn't know how hard it would be. How much work it takes to stay in love when life gets heavy. Victoria climbed onto the rock, sitting where she'd sat 7 years ago when Marcus pulled out a ring and asked her to marry him. Do you still love me? Marcus climbed up beside her. Yes. God, yes. Every single day, even when I couldn't show it. Even when I was drowning in everything else. You were always the one thing that mattered. Then why wasn't I enough to make you stay present? The question had been building for weeks. The core of everything. Marcus looked at her, and she saw tears in his eyes. Because I didn't think I deserved you. I thought if I could just be successful enough, important enough, valuable enough, then maybe I'd be worthy of your love. I didn't understand that you'd already decided I was worthy. That you'd chosen me not for what I could become, but for who I was. And who are you, Marcus? Underneath the CEO and the billionaire and the guilt. He laughed, but it was broken. I don't know. I haven't been just myself in so long. I don't know if that person even exists anymore. Victoria took his hand. Then let's find out. Together. Let's strip away all the things we've built around ourselves and see what's left. What if there's nothing left? Then we'll build something new. From scratch. Just us. They sat on that rock as the tide came in, watching waves crash against the shore, feeling the spray on their faces. And for the first time in years, Victoria felt something other than emptiness. She felt hope. That night, back at home, Marcus made dinner. Badly. He burned the chicken and oversalted the vegetables, and they ended up ordering pizza and eating it on the living room floor. I forgot how terrible you are in the kitchen, Victoria said, laughing. Hey, I tried. That should count for something. It does. It counts for a lot. They ate in comfortable silence, and when they finished, Marcus pulled out his phone. "I want to show you something," he said. He pulled up a document. "Remember how I said I almost quit 3 years ago? I kept the resignation letter. I want you to read it." Victoria took the phone, her hands trembling. The letter was dated October 15th, 3 years and 2 months ago. To the board of directors. "Effective immediately, I am resigning as CEO of Hayes Industries. This company has been my life's work, but I've realized that in building it, I've sacrificed the thing that actually matters, my marriage to the woman I love. I'm choosing her. I'm choosing us. I'm choosing a life that's measured not in profits and acquisitions, but in moments and memories and the simple joy of being present. Thank you for the opportunity to lead. But it's time for me to lead a different kind of life. Marcus Hayes." Victoria's vision blurred with tears. "You wrote this." "I wrote it. I was going to send it. But then I got scared. I thought, what if she doesn't want me without the company? What if I'm nothing without this? I never wanted the company, Marcus. I only ever wanted you." He took the phone back, his fingers hovering over the screen. "Then let me send it. Now. Today." Victoria's breath caught. "What? Let me send it. Let me show you that I'm serious. That I'm choosing us. That nothing else matters. Marcus, you can't just." "Yes, I can. I've spent 7 years building something that was supposed to make me worthy of you. But it only pushed you away. So let me tear it down. Let me start over. With you." Victoria saw the determination in his eyes. The fear. The desperate hope. "Don't send it," she said softly. His face fell. "Not yet," she continued. "Not because I don't believe you, but because I need to know you're choosing us for the right reasons. Not because you're afraid of losing me. Not because you're trying to prove something, but because it's what you genuinely want. Take your month off. Figure out who you are without the company. And then decide." Marcus nodded slowly. "You're right. You're absolutely right. But keep the letter," Victoria said. "Keep it as a reminder of the choice you almost made, and might still make." He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. And Victoria kissed him back, tasting salt from tears, feeling the slow, painful thaw of a heart she'd frozen to protect herself. They weren't fixed. They were still broken. But they were breaking together, instead of apart. And that made all the difference. 3 months later, Victoria stood in Melissa and Brian's living room, holding a casserole dish that was becoming her signature. The house looked different. Brighter. Brian had painted the kitchen a warm yellow. Melissa's medical equipment, the force stand, the pill organizers, the endless paperwork, had been relegated to a corner, no longer the centerpiece of their lives. Melissa herself looked different too. Her hair was growing back in soft, dark waves after the chemotherapy. She'd lost weight, but her eyes held something they hadn't before. Life. "You didn't have to bring anything," Melissa said, taking the dish. "But I'm glad you did. Your chicken casserole is the only thing I could keep down during treatment. I've made so many at this point I could start a restaurant," Victoria said, smiling. Brian emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. "Victoria, hey. Marcus is in the backyard with the grill. Fair warning, he's using way too much charcoal again." Victoria laughed. "I'll go supervise before he burns down the neighborhood." She walked through the house and out the back door, where Marcus stood in front of a smoking grill, poking at burgers with intense concentration. "You're going to incinerate them," Victoria said. Marcus jumped, then grinned. "I have it under control." "You absolutely do not." "Okay, fine. I have no idea what I'm doing. Help me." Victoria took the spatula and adjusted the temperature, flipping the burgers that were dangerously close to becoming charcoal. Marcus watched her with an expression she'd come to recognize over the past 3 months. Wonder. Like he was seeing her for the first time, every single day. "Thank you," he said softly. "For saving dinner? For everything." She kissed his cheek. "You're welcome." The 4 of them ate on the Caldwell's back patio as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The conversation flowed easily. Brian's stories from his recent flights, Melissa's latest scan results, clear, miraculously clear, Marcus's awkward attempts at learning to cook, Victoria's acceptance into the PhD program she'd deferred a year ago but was finally starting in the fall. "You're really going back to school?" Melissa asked, her eyes bright with interest. "I am. Art history. I'll be the oldest student in most of my classes, but I'm excited." "That's amazing," Melissa said. "I wish I'd done something like that. Before all this, I mean. I spent so much time just existing, not really living." Brian squeezed her hand. You're living now. That's what matters. The love between them was palpable, raw and hard-won, forged in crisis. Victoria recognized it because she felt it in her own marriage now, that fierce, deliberate choosing of each other, over and over. After dinner, Marcus and Brian cleaned up while Victoria and Melissa sat on the porch steps, watching fireflies dance in the growing darkness. Can I ask you something? Melissa said. Of course. How did you forgive him? Marcus, I mean. How did you let go of that night, of thinking he'd betrayed you? Victoria considered the question. I'm not sure I've completely forgiven him, or myself, but I realize forgiveness isn't a single moment. It's a practice. Every day, I choose to believe he's telling the truth. Every day, he chooses to show me he meant his promises. We're building trust brick by brick. That sounds exhausting. It is, Victoria admitted. But it's also the most alive I've felt in years. Turns out, easy isn't always good. Sometimes the hard things are what matter most. Melissa was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry for my part in it. For not being honest from the start. For letting him help me without considering what it might cost his marriage. You were dying, Victoria said gently. You were scared and desperate. I understand that now. Still, I should have told Brian from the beginning. And I should have told Marcus to tell you. Secrets have a way of poisoning everything. They do, Victoria agreed. But so does assuming the worst about the people we love. I was so ready to believe Marcus had betrayed me because I'd already convinced myself I wasn't worthy of his love. The secret just confirmed what I already feared. And now, Victoria smiled. Now I'm learning that I am worthy. That we both are. Flaws and all. Melissa leaned her head on Victoria's shoulder. I'm glad you're my neighbor. Me too. Later that night, driving home, Marcus reached across the console and took Victoria's hand. That was nice, he said. It was. Brian's good for her. He didn't run when things got hard. Neither did you. Victoria glanced at him. Neither did you. They drove in comfortable silence for a while. Then Marcus said, I have something to tell you. Victoria's heart skipped. Okay. I sent the letter. This morning. To the board. She nearly swerved the car. What? I'm stepping down as CEO. Not immediately. I'm giving them 6 months to find a replacement. But I'm done, Vic. I'm really done. Marcus. Let me finish. I've spent 3 months figuring out who I am without the company, and here's what I learned. I'm the man who loves you, who wants to travel the world with you, who wants to learn to cook, badly, and go back to school, maybe, and just live a life that's measured in moments instead of mergers. Tears streamed down Victoria's face. Are you sure? Really sure. I've never been more sure of anything. Hayes Industries was supposed to prove I was worthy of the life Emma didn't get. But I finally understand. She wouldn't have wanted this. She would have wanted me to live. Really live. With joy and presence and love. Not just survive. Victoria pulled the car over, parking on the side of the residential street. She turned to face him. What will you do? I don't know yet. And that's terrifying. But also exciting. Maybe I'll consult. Maybe I'll teach. Maybe I'll just be a house husband who burns dinner every night. He cupped her face. But whatever I do, I'll do it with you. Not despite you. Not in the margins of our life together, but with you at the center. Victoria kissed him, tasting salt and promise and the strange, beautiful ache of new beginnings. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you too. I always have. I just forgot how to show it. Then show me now. Every day. In the small ways and the big ones. I will. I promise. 6 months later, Victoria sat in Dr. Chen's office for what would be their last session. So, Dr. Chen said, looking between them, tell me where you are. Marcus spoke first. I officially stepped down last week. The new CEO started Monday. And I feel lighter. Scared, but lighter. And you, Victoria? I finished my first semester. Got straight A's. Turns out I'm pretty good at this academic thing. She smiled. And I'm learning to take up space. To believe I deserve to be seen. How does your relationship feel now? Victoria and Marcus looked at each other. Victoria saw in his eyes what she felt in her own heart. That strange mixture of gratitude and grief, of joy and scar tissue. Real, Victoria said. We're not perfect. We still fight. We still have bad days. But we're here. Together. Actually together. We collided, Marcus added, echoing Dr. Chen's words from months ago. And we're still figuring out the shape of what we're building from the wreckage. But we're building it together. Dr. Chen smiled. That's the best answer I could hope for. Marriage isn't about being perfect. It's about being present. And you two are finally present with each other. So we're done? Victoria asked. With therapy? With me, yes. But not with the work. The work never stops. You'll have to keep choosing each other. Keep being honest. Keep showing up even when it's hard. We will, Marcus said, squeezing Victoria's hand. As they left the office, walking out into the bright afternoon sunshine, Victoria felt a sense of completion. Not the end of their story, but the end of a chapter. What do you want to do tonight? Marcus asked. Something simple. Order takeout. Watch a movie. Talk about nothing and everything. Perfect. They walked to the car, hands intertwined, and Victoria realized something profound. She'd spent so many years chasing the fantasy of what marriage should be. Constant passion, effortless connection, fairy tale romance. But this was better. This messy, hard-won, deliberately chosen love. This marriage built on honesty and vulnerability and the courage to keep trying even when it hurt. This was real, and real was enough. 1 year after that terrible night, Victoria and Marcus hosted a dinner party. Their guests, Melissa and Brian, Dr. Chun and her husband, and a few close friends Marcus had reconnected with after leaving the company. The house felt different now. Victoria had redecorated, getting rid of the designer's cold perfection and replacing it with warmth. Family photos. Melissa's paintings, she'd taken up art during her recovery. Books everywhere. A home that felt lived in and loved. Marcus stood at the stove, cooking, still not great at it, but better. Victoria set the table, humming to herself. Need help? Melissa called from the living room. We've got it, Victoria called back. Marcus turned from the stove, pulling Victoria close. Happy anniversary. It's not our wedding anniversary. No, it's our choosing each other anniversary. 1 year since that night. 1 year since we decided to fight for us. Victoria kissed him. Best decision I ever made. Second best, Marcus corrected. First was saying yes when I proposed. Okay, second best. The doorbell rang. More guests arriving. More laughter filling the house. As Victoria opened the door, greeting friends with hugs and smiles, she caught Marcus's eye across the room. He winked at her, and she felt that flutter she'd thought was long dead. Love. Not the easy kind. Not the fairy tale kind. The kind that survives. The kind that grows stronger in the breaking and the healing. After dinner, as everyone sat around the table, glasses of wine in hand, Brian raised a toast. To second chances, he said. To the courage to tell the truth, even when it's terrifying. To the people who stay when it gets hard. And to love. Messy, imperfect, real love. Here, everyone echoed. Victoria looked around the table at these people, some who'd been strangers a year ago, now woven into the fabric of her life. She thought about that night. The knock on the door. The panic. The breaking. And she was grateful. Grateful for the breaking, because it led to the healing. Grateful for the crisis, because it forced the truth. Grateful for the pain, because it made the joy mean something. Later, after the guests had gone home and the house was quiet, Victoria and Marcus sat on their back porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Do you ever think about that night? Victoria asked. About how close we came to losing everything? Every day, Marcus admitted. And every day, I'm grateful we didn't. Me too. They sat in silence, holding each other, feeling the weight and wonder of all they'd survived. Vic, yeah. I'm happy. I don't think I've been able to say that in years. But I'm happy. Victoria smiled, tears pricking her eyes. So am I. And it was true. Not the happiness of fairy tales, effortless and constant and perfect, but the happiness of real life, hard-won and precious and worth every moment of the fight. The happiness of coming home, not to a house, but to each other, again and again and again. CTA, thank you so much for reading this journey with me. Victoria and Marcus's story shows us that love isn't about perfection. It's about presence, honesty, and the courage to rebuild. What's your biggest takeaway from their story? Drop a comment below. I read every single one, and I'd love to hear how this resonated with you. Thank you so much for watching my story all the way to the end. Your support means everything. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts.